an AI deepfake, a massive wave of confusion, and a rising star's image on the line. That's exactly what happened when a suspicious OnlyFans account claiming to be Rachel Zegler appeared out of nowhere. The images looked disturbingly real, so real that thousands of people actually subscribed within days. But once the dust settled, it turned out Rachel had nothing to do with it at all. Every single photo and video on that page had been artificially generated. It was a complete hoax, created by someone who clearly knew how to exploit her name at the worst possible moment. At first glance, you might wonder why this is such a big deal. After all, public figures face identity scams and imposter accounts all the time. But for Rachel Zegler, the timing couldn't have been worse. She was already in the middle of a PR storm over her controversial comments about Snow White. On top of that, whispers of strained relations with co-star Gal Gadot and concerns from Disney executives were starting to dominate social media discussions. Then, this AI deepfake scandal dropped like a bombshell, fueling the notion that everything around Rachel was swirling into chaos.
Because you just can't close your mouth. You just can't be sane, even when you do open your mouth.
Online, the reaction to the OnlyFans fiasco was immediate. Some believed it was genuine, pointing to the high-resolution images that fooled even seasoned internet users. Others scoffed, saying the whole thing had to be fake because a Disney star on OnlyFans would be unthinkable during a high-stakes film promotion. But the more pressing issue was how quickly the rumor escalated. Within hours, comment sections, Twitter threads, and even certain tabloids were flooded with accusations that Rachel herself had launched the account. She was dragged into headlines suggesting she was cashing in on controversy. It took multiple sources, including close contacts of Rachel's team, to confirm she had no connection whatsoever to the content. That confirmation did little to stop the frenzy. It was like trying to put out a grease fire with water. The speculation just kept spreading. Many fans, already skeptical after seeing how she'd spoken about the classic 1937 version of Snow White, assumed the worst. Even those who dismissed the rumor as nonsense found themselves questioning how a big-budget Disney production could allow its star to be so vulnerable to scandal. Disney prides itself on tight brand management. How did this slip through the cracks?
Oh my God.
When you compare how Rachel Zegler spoke about Snow White to how other actresses who played live-action Disney princesses spoke about their character, really underlines just how poorly she carried herself.
Behind the scenes, Disney executives had been anxious about Rachel for months. Ever since her interviews promoting Snow White started going viral for all the wrong reasons, the studio faced a growing concern. Could she be trusted to represent one of the most iconic fairy tale characters without alienating families? Rachel's remarks calling the original film weird and outdated hadn't gone over well with traditional Disney fans. For many viewers, Snow White symbolizes innocence and nostalgia, a beloved piece of childhood. Hearing the lead actress dismiss it so casually felt like a betrayal. Even worse, her tone in those interviews came across as dismissive and condescending. She brushed off questions about the prince, joked about a love story nobody asked for, and seemed unbothered by the fact that her words could offend the millions of people who grew up on that classic cartoon. Online forums lit up with posts criticizing her attitude, calling her ungrateful and too cool for Disney. The frustration wasn't necessarily with the idea of modernizing a fairy tale. Disney has done that successfully before. It was that Rachel seemed to be scorning the entire legacy that had paved her way.
Zegler is really just this pretty common Gen Z mentality and approach to work.
That's precisely why the AI scandal struck such a nerve. It felt like one more piece of drama surrounding a star who was supposed to be carrying the torch for a multi-generational franchise. The entire fiasco quickly overshadowed any positivity that could have come from the film's early buzz. Suddenly, whenever someone mentioned Rachel Zegler's name, they weren't talking about her singing voice or her performance. They were talking about fake lewd images, questionable interviews, and a mounting sense of unease around her public persona. Meanwhile, tension between Rachel and Gal Gadot continued to be a hot topic. During press events, the two appeared together less frequently than expected. When they did, fans noticed the body language was stiff. Smiles looked forced, and their brief exchanges felt like empty formalities. Whispers circulated that Gal, a seasoned pro at handling media, had been advised to keep her distance, at least until the uproar around Rachel died down. This ice-cold dynamic only fueled the idea that Rachel was radioactive in Hollywood's eyes, and that even her co-star was steering clear of the chaos. And of course, Disney took notice. For a studio that thrives on a wholesome, family-friendly brand image, these controversies were deeply unsettling. A starring role in a major Disney adaptation can be a career-defining moment. It often catapults an actor into a realm of mainstream recognition few other projects can match. But it also comes with pressure. There's an unspoken expectation that the lead of a Disney fairy tale honors the legacy, respects the fans, and treads carefully around the story's timeless appeal. Whether Rachel fully realized that weight is up for debate, but from her public statements, many felt she approached the role with too much irreverence. Now, add the AI deepfake scandal into the mix. Not only did it stain her reputation further, by association alone, it also sparked conversations about digital exploitation and brand safety. If a Disney star can so easily be impersonated online, what does that mean for the studio's security measures and the well-being of its talents? Some worried that if the images had been more explicit or convincing, it could create irreparable harm to Rachel's image and, by extension, the film's reputation. Others wondered if Disney might take legal steps to shut down the account and set a precedent for going after malicious creators of deepfake content. But so far, if any legal action is happening behind closed doors, it hasn't made headlines. Fans on social media were split into factions. One side believed Rachel was a victim of bad timing and malicious impersonation, urging people to remember that she hadn't asked for any of this. The other side pointed out that even if the AI deepfake was beyond her control, she still did plenty of damage on her own by showing contempt for a story many hold dear. A smaller but vocal group questioned whether this scandal was intentionally orchestrated. Though that theory seems to have little basis in fact, it just shows how ready the internet is to latch onto any conspiracy when the official narrative feels messy. For Rachel herself, the fallout could have lasting consequences. Hollywood is no stranger to controversy, but negative headlines can derail a rising star's momentum in record time. Already, speculation swirled that certain studios were re-evaluating her involvement in future projects. If her audience appeal is compromised, and parents, Disney's core demographic, view her with suspicion or outright dislike, then casting her in family-oriented films becomes a risky gamble. It's not about moral judgments so much as box office predictions. Studios ask, will this star draw people in or drive them away? What makes Rachel's predicament more troubling is the sense that it was all so avoidable. The AI deepfake scandal, in fairness, wasn't her fault. She didn't create those images, nor did she ever endorse them. But the interviews where she belittled the foundation of Snow White were entirely in her control. The reason fans jumped to negative conclusions during the OnlyFans hoax was because she'd already left a sour taste in their mouths. When your image is fragile, any new scandal, no matter how fake, gains an extra layer of credibility in the public eye. So how does one bounce back from this? If Rachel hopes to rebuild trust, she might need to address the controversies head-on, a heartfelt acknowledgement that she misspoke or that she regrets framing her remarks in a way that offended longtime Disney fans could potentially go a long way. The deepfake situation might even garner sympathy if handled with transparency. Nobody wants to see anyone's face hijacked by AI, especially not for something so exploitative. Yet up to now, she's made relatively few public moves to mend fences in a relatable, human way. Her critics see that as arrogance. Her supporters argue she's just overwhelmed. It doesn't help that the internet has little patience for nuance. Once a negative impression forms, it becomes the lens through which many interpret every new detail. If she tries to defend herself, some will view it as too little, too late. If she stays silent, conspiracy theories run rampant. Meanwhile, those AI images remain a grim reminder of how easily someone's face can be misused, no matter how famous they are or which company they're working for. Disney's predicament is even more complex. The live-action remake of Snow White was supposed to be a major highlight, a chance to captivate younger audiences while re-engaging older fans. Instead, it now carries the baggage of multiple controversies. The studio can't exactly recast the lead at this point. The filming and most of the promotional materials are locked in. Any attempts to downplay Rachel's role might spark even more speculation about backstage tensions. So, from a business standpoint, they have to ride this out. hoping that by release day, audiences will still be intrigued enough to see the film despite the negative. With each passing day of silence, more rumors swirl about how badly this could affect Zegler's career trajectory. Potential outcomes include 1. If the studio concludes she harmed the film's earnings, they might not only cut ties, but also hold her legally accountable for breach of contract. 2. Producers considering her for future roles may pull back, worried she'll bring controversy or alienate audiences. 3. Hollywood is known for reinvention. If she finds a project that resonates with viewers and issues a genuine apology, she might bounce back in time. 4. She may decide to stay silent and out of sight until the heat dies down, focusing on smaller indie projects or taking time away from the spotlight altogether. She may decide to stay silent and out of sight until the heat dies down, focusing on smaller indie projects or taking time away from the spotlight altogether. She may decide to stay silent and out of sight, focusing on smaller. Of course, there's still a possibility that time and a strong performance might heal some wounds. If the final version of Snow White impresses critics and audiences, the conversation might shift back to her talent. The deepfake story could fade into a cautionary tale about the dangers of AI, rather than a defining moment in her career. But that scenario requires a delicate balancing act. Rachel would need to reconnect with the fan base, Disney would need to deftly manage any further controversies, and the film itself would need to deliver the nostalgic charm people crave. Still, the deeper lesson here might be how easily public opinion can turn when a star doesn't handle a beloved property with care. In a realm where iconic fairy tales hold personal meaning for millions, showing even a hint of snark or mockery can invite a tsunami of backlash. And once you're labeled the villain, everything else that happens, like the OnlyFans deepfake, just piles onto the negativity, even if it's completely out of your hands. Ultimately, Rachel Zegler finds herself at a crossroads. On one side lies the promise of a successful Hollywood career, with plenty of high-profile projects waiting for a versatile actor who can sing, dance, and captivate the screen. On the other side looms the risk of being forever remembered as the actress who took a legendary Disney classic, scoffed at its legacy, and then got swept up in a scandal-laden storm. Whether she can recalibrate her public image depends largely on the moves she makes in the coming months, how she engages with fans, how she addresses controversies, and how she navigates the increasingly murky waters of online impersonation. Time will tell if the AI deepfake scandal becomes a footnote or the final straw. For now, it stands as one more dramatic chapter in a saga that started with some poorly chosen words and escalated into a web of rumors, tension, and digital manipulation. In an industry fueled by perception, the question remains, can Rachel Zegler rewrite the narrative and regain the trust of Disney fans? Or has this whole debacle left an indelible mark on both her career and the film she was meant to champion? Only the unfolding story and the audience that's eagerly watching will decide the answer.